letter that was drafted by the IRS in response to these findings. And what we see here is that the IRS agrees, and they are going to take additional action. They agree, as I zoom in here, they agree that 9,621 claims were erroneously claimed, and that does not mean that it was there were only that many claims that were erroneous. It just means that out of the ones identified by the Inspector General, there were over 9,600. And now moving forward, it says that in response to this, they're actually going to conduct additional audits, beginning with 1,000 cases. And the IRS says that they are going to conduct 500 audits of individuals and 500 audits of businesses. And now here's the most important part, is the very last sentence at the bottom. The results of these audits will determine if additional audits are warranted.
That is the key. That's the key
yeah.
phrase right there.
And I've spoken to auditors, and I say, you know, I try to pick their brains for the clients that are being audited, and we represent many already. And I say, so what are you expecting here? What do you see? And they try to hide the ball, but I get little bits and pieces from them. And one that I spoke to personally said that, you know, that this is just the first round of several installments of audits. And that made me believe that it's highly likely that more people will be getting audited regarding this issue.
And that's what we've seen with the other credits, Derek. So to really simplify things, they take a sample size, and in this case, their sample size that they've selected is 1,000 cases. And based on what happens in those 1,000 cases, the IRS quantifies the potential recovery, and then they make a decision in this last line here of the paragraph whether additional audits are warranted. And how do they decide if they're warranted? Well, if they think there's money to go after, then they will. And the number of audits will increase. And that's what we've seen with all of the other tax credits that we've mentioned. Again, it doesn't mean that they're correct. We're just sort of giving a background of how this comes about to begin with.
That's right. And I just want to mention there's one other particular auditor that I haven't spoken to personally, but this is almost comical to me. I keep getting reports of an auditor in a particular area that's handed out currently about 50 notices, and she's going to be handing out 700 notices, and she's almost bragging about it. So for those of you in the 3% that answered that you had received the notices, and for you that were another, I think 3 or 4% that said that you knew of people who received the notices, I'm guessing that those persons who received notices were in that first installment out of 1,000. Now, with respect to this auditor talking about sending out another 700 notices, that makes me think that the first 50 notices that she sent out were also part of the first 1,000 cases. But where does that put the other 650 notices that she's claiming will be sent out? That's what makes me think that this is going to be more of a large-scale audit, and that's what really sent up a red flag for me and made me think, okay, people should really be taking a proactive approach to resolving this issue.
So the question everyone wants to know who's listening today, Derek, is are these audit notices being sent only to those people who purchase vehicles from Drive Electric?
No, absolutely not. You saw the poll results, and then you saw that there were 1,000 audits sent out. There's that 3%. If all of those people were being audited, then that would be, if they were specific to Drive Electric, that 3% would be a much larger number. This is an industry-wide issue, and so the IRS is just sending these out throughout all purchasers of these cars from whichever distributor it may be, and they're just trying to see what they get. It's kind of just, you know, swinging for the fences and hoping they hit a home run.
Right. So many people in the audience, we've seen from the poll results are being audited, but not all of them. Do you believe that others in the audience are at risk of being audited based on what we know from this report?
Based on what we know from this report, and I think more importantly, based on what we've heard from these auditors. What these auditors say go hand in hand with this report. If they had decided not to take it to the next level and do this, advance this where it's more large scale of an audit, then why is an auditor running around claiming that there's going to be another 700 notices sent out?
Sure. Sure. So I think what we've learned is that we can anticipate more, not only from what we're hearing from the auditors, but also just the pattern of how this has occurred, and it's so similar to what we've seen in other cases. And again, what we've seen in other cases for other types of tax credits, such as the new home buyer credit, is that a large portion of the people who become affected by these audits, they've done nothing wrong. They've done nothing wrong, but it doesn't reduce their risk of being audited. And those that are well prepared, who do receive the audit notice, that go in with the research and the proper documentation, have nothing to fear. And that's what we've seen, for example, in the case of the new home tax credits.
That's an excellent point, Dominique, and that actually leads to the next poll that I have. And I want to go ahead and launch this because no one really jumped into this, I don't believe, without first doing a little bit of research. And what's interesting is that I'm guessing many of the people in the audience are even accountants. You know, I've spoken to tax attorneys who said they took advantage of the tax credit. So this next poll, I'd like for everyone to fill out as many areas as are applicable. So you're not limited to just one choice. Now, with respect to these first two responses, it says, I am an accountant, tax attorney, or tax advisor. I put that in there not to put you on the spot, but more so that you can distinguish yourself from the person who spoke to the tax advisor. I doubt that too many of you would admit to speaking to yourself, and so that's why that's there.
And hey, you know, the last response here, you know, there are people who have reliable, good advisors that they turn to for this type of advice, and the trust that you place in those advisors leads to not feeling like you need to conduct any research whatsoever, and that's totally fine if you're working with a reliable advisor, and it's not uncommon for people to place total trust in their advisors and not conduct any further research. After all, that's why you're paying these advisors, to give you these types of recommendations.
That's absolutely correct. You expect if you or I were to hand out advice to someone in the crowd, we hope that they're listening right now, and you know they're going to take advantage of this information. So there's not anything wrong with not conducting research, but I just thought that this was very interesting. I'm going to go ahead and post these, just how much research everyone did regarding this credit, and the results aren't really surprising to me here. So 27% of you in the audience today are actually accountants. I would guess that almost all of you, or all of you, click the third row down, which is you reviewed the statute, the regs, and you said, wow, this definitely qualifies for the credit. 44% here, I spoke to my tax advisor. Assuming that no one clicked the first and second rows, then we've got a pretty high percentage there, about 3/4. So that really leads us to whether these purchases qualified for the credit despite what the IRS is saying. And I guess that leads us to also, what is the IRS saying? Up on the screen, I've got the 3 requirements under the general rule for a purchase to qualify for the tax credit. the vehicle